out to the land for the first time, I'll never forget, it was a beautiful. How did they make it? You know, even though they were still finishing plants and things, you got that sense that it was going to be so different and so, you know, immersive. We were going to really own that moon.
We walked through the security gate and popped out. And it was amazing because all the scaffolding was still up on the floating mountains, but all underneath the floating mountains, it was all still dirt.
One of the biggest things I remember was what the land sounds like whenever there's not a lot of people there.
When they finally said, oh yeah, you can go out to the land, no hard hats needed, everything, it was just like, whoa.
It was just cool being there with no guests and like them still working on things.
I thought it was the coolest thing, like being able to sit in a land knowing that we're the only ones in it right now, being able to be the ones to create something that's going to be different and unique.
I was in a class taught by Kelsey and Alex, and the skits that they did were just hilarious. I just remember a lot of the answers to our questions were, we will look into that and we will let you know when we know. I guess at the time, like, there were a lot of unknown things.
Every single day, someone would just walk in and drop this burning bag of feces in our laps.
I can't even like fathom the words right now to describe what training was in Pandora.
The constant changing of our schedules and trying to figure out what was happening.
All the challenges we had at Flight of Passage, where we couldn't get the ride, we had the overheating issue, things like that. Every morning we showed up, we had nothing to do but sit at home tree and teach off emojis and papers and graphs. We pushed very few buttons prior to that first day.
The day we were supposed to get assessed, literally assessment happened 30 minutes before the trainees arrived.
You walk into Flight of Passage and everyone has this look on their face, and then you stop and you ask a trainer, hey, how's it going? Everything good? Oh, fine. Everybody's about to assess today, but nobody's seen a console. Everything's good. We're good. We'll make it work.
We were just winging it a lot of the time.
Okay, so we technically have to get you signed off, so we have Alpha. So go ahead and send the flight one time and watch the tower monitors one time, and now you can show your trainees how to do it.
I don't think I ever actually touched a button until my assessment.
The amount of melting Jeff Lopa pictures that we got in those first few weeks was just fantastic, because he would always get the call, right? And he'd be there and he'd be melting down and we'd be snapping away, and he'd end his call and we're like, so what's it now? It got to this point where all would just shrug and like, oh, that's today's burning bag of feces, you know? Surely this can't get any worse. I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay, cool.
When I got like my first set of trainees, said, hey, like I'm gonna be your trainer. I really don't know what I'm doing, so we're gonna figure it out together.
A lot of people like to learn by doing, and we couldn't do at Flight of Passage when we were training the opening team. We couldn't touch the ride at all. We kind of sat in conference rooms and hypothesized about how we would direct guest flow and all these sorts of things.
A lot of us were sitting in what is now like the vending machine room because there was nothing in there, or go into what is now Neil DeLee's office and trying to train trainees in there.
And we spent a lot of time like in and out of rooms, like trying to find somewhere quiet to like read and talk about things.
We can read the OG, so like we sat in the vending room area.
When we were finally allowed to take people over to the site where we couldn't touch anything, we couldn't be around anything.
I was one of the first test and adjust people to get trained, and I had Cheryl and Erica Rendazzo. No one really knew what was going on. So it was kind of just winging it all around.
So we kept like bringing people in and kind of sneaking people into different areas.
A+ Cheryl, shout out when you watch this, nailed it. Erica nailed it.
All the trainees thought that we had been there for forever and knew what we were doing. That was not the case at all.
Making sure that they all knew everything as much as we could pass along to them in that short amount of time without touching anything, without going certain places.
There were still parts of the ride room that there wasn't a wall there, so you could walk through the wall. And then the next week, there's a wall there, so you can't go through it anymore.
Talking through how to load somebody, but like never having actually loaded somebody.
So we were all just flying blind and making it up and changing every day, and just how good the cast were. We know we said this is how this is going to be today, but it's different today, and it's going to be different an hour from now because we're just figuring it out.
I just remember a lot of the training being hypothetical.
The grouper game that we did.
We want to talk about great debates of opening, like picking coordinators, picking cast members, and how do we group the guests at Flight of Passage.
standing up at grouper 2 and we're looking down at the lanes and we're trying to figure out like how we're gonna use all of these lanes and are we gonna use all 4 of them or is some like how are we gonna do it?
We need to pump these people through. And Jay's like, we're gonna have plenty of time, people.
We all had to give each other numbers and try to group. We put people who have worked attractions before in a line saying, hey, give these people numbers or give these people situations. They will give you the worst numbers and the worst situations, and you have no idea what to do.
It was the only thing that we could do where we could really train without having to touch anything. Almost every other position, we had to theoretically train.
The reason we spent so much time on groupers because we couldn't go anywhere else. We don't know what any of the buttons do, and we can't press them anyway, and we can't go to the places we need to go. But darn it, we can do grouper, so let's come up with all sorts of innovative ways to train.
We were just convinced that as a grouper, you'd have no time to do any of this. And Jay, like, the whole time was like, I think there's gonna be time. And there was definitely time.
Every day it was like we would recap or we would have a little conversation or quickly check in, and it was always the same thing. And I always felt so bad. Training at Navi was just umbrellas and beaches and then Flight of Passage.
And everyone's mindset was flight's where it's at. And then they all started getting to know Navi and they're like, wow, she's great, she's beautiful. And we're like, yeah, look at our shaman. She is our queen.
To just have the ride and be able to put our hands on it was the nice part. So at Navi, we really were just excited to get people in it.
We were so close-knit, it just felt like 13 people were trained at Navi River Journey.
It was a small group of us, so we all kind of got to know each other. We were in the break room just bantering every day, eating pizza.
Opening Navi was fantastic because Mama Lou kept us all alive with her snacks.
This was my first attraction for me when I was able to stand behind the console and pushing buttons. This was the first time when I started to grouping. I still have nightmares when I have 30 seconds to fill up 16 position and the boats are going and it's coming a party of 47 or a party of 9, but they don't want lap seating, so I still have these issues.
Patrick Malone was my trainer. He was also Mamie's trainer. Mamie and I sat next to each other at Passage to Pandora, immediately found out we would have to spend the next week together.
Patrick said something about a fire, and I said, oh, well, what about a visible odor? And he and there was another trainer there stopped and said, oh, what? That's what they say in monorails. So I thought it was the same thing everywhere, and they gave me grief about that for like the entire opening month.
Patrick Malone deserves a plaque somewhere.
We were very disruptive, maybe not intentionally, but we were extremely disruptive to his training process, and he never got frustrated.
Starting to train all the coordinators.
We went exploring. You know, there were really no places that were off limits to us. I want to say it may have been Luann, and she had some trainees, and she was like, all right, yeah, so, you know, this is a place you never go over there, and here we come around the corner.
I always remember we were told never go up there when we were led around and first trained. And so I was always protective of that. And I remember that day that they were up there.
Do you remember who her trainee was? It was Jeff. He said, you never go up these stairs. And Jeff looked at us and we were all like, at the end.
It was a very memorable, stressful, cool time.
It was crazy, but it was so much fun.
You know, it was a great training experience. Not a lot of people get to say I was there when we had no idea how to officially do things.
Working as a team together to kind of get everybody on boarded before May 27th was fun.